Hello and welcome to the 4th episode of the Friday Film Show. As always, I'm your host David O'Sullivan, and this is my weekly movie talk series in which every week I come to you and look back over the past week and give you my thoughts and opinions on all the movie news stories, movie trailers and new releases that most interest me. With that being said, let's just get straight into this. And first up, I've got films I've watched this week, and I have 2 films here in this segment. And first is Nocturnal Animals, and I kind of have mixed feelings about Nocturnal Animals. I'm not quite sure yet whether I just like it or whether I love it. I don't know, because I don't know, it's one of those films where you watch it and you're like, I think this is the kind of film where I'd need to see a second time before I give my kind of my thoughts on it. However, I did really like it. I think I have a feeling, I don't know for sure, but I have a feeling this is going to be one of those kind of films where it will kind of grow on you over time, or where you see new different things each time you watch it, where it kind of maybe gets better the more times you watch it. I don't know, but having only seen it for the first time, my initial thoughts, I did like Nocturnal Animals. There was things I really liked about it, but there was things that I didn't think quite worked. Well, to be fair, there was a lot of things that I really did like about this. First off, I think Tom Ford, the direction by Tom Ford, obviously he's only done one film before this. He did A Single Man, which was another quite stylish film, and I really like what he did here with this film. I don't think it was style over substance. It was very stylized and very much, you know, you could tell it was a film made by him, a film made by like a fashion designer. It was very well shot, it looked great. I don't think it was style over substance. There was times, I think, when the style might have gotten in the way a little bit, but I think there was a lot to this film, and there was stuff beneath the surface. But I really like the direction by Tom Ford. Like I said, I think it looked great, and what I love most about this film was that it was kind of 3 different stories, and almost 3 different films all meshed together into one film. And you think that had the danger of being a very messy, all over the place kind of film, but the way in which it was done so incredibly well. How these 3 different stories were kind of weaved together into one film. It was great, because we had the present day stuff, Amy Adams, this art dealer, and that was kind of very cold and harsh in terms of how it looked, with the colours and the lighting and the characters as well. And then we had the kind of flashbacks to the past. It was almost looked like a kind of rom-com with her when she was younger, when she met Jake Gyllenhaal. And then we had this kind of crazy, you know, psychological Western thriller almost, which was the story of the book she was reading from her ex-husband, and we saw that brought to life, and I loved it. I was worried it might have been a bit of a kind of novelty, gimmicky kind of film, but it wasn't. I loved the way in which these 3 different stories, these 3 different settings, these 3 different films almost all weaved together into one film. I think it wasn't jarring at all. You think it would be, but it wasn't. How Tom Ford transitioned between these 3 different stories, it was done so effectively, where they almost became kind of merged towards the end. Amy Adams was getting so engrossed into this book that we were seeing brought to life, and how they kind of overlapped in certain respects, kind of different images we were seeing and different stories that recurred, the transitions between going from one to the other. I think it was great. It was really well done. The performances were great as well. Amy Adams was really good. You forget how great of an actress Amy Adams is until you see her in a really quite different role like this, and you're like, wow, she really became that character. And she doesn't really get a lot to do. She's mainly just reading this book, and when you can watch an actor reading a book and be really kind of engrossed and engaged, you know, it's obviously a good actor, and it's obviously quite hard to look like you're really engrossed in a book and reading a book, but she does a really great job. Jake Gyllenhaal's in there as well. He's great. Michael Shannon, though, and Aaron Taylor-Johnson really stole this movie for me. I absolutely loved them. My favourite part of the film was probably the story in which we saw the book brought to life, and those 2 were just so great. Such great character actors, I think, both of them. Aaron Taylor-Johnson was a standout, and I just absolutely love Michael Shannon. He was just terrific in this. They were both great, and yeah, there was a lot to like about this film, even though, like I said, I felt like at times the style, it wasn't style over substance. It wasn't trying to be some pretentious artsy thing. It very much had an intention, and it very much knew what it was and what it was trying to be, and it succeeded in that. But for me, at times, the kind of over-stylized nature of it and the kind of style kind of got in the way of the film sometimes. I felt, for example, the opening scene, I wasn't that big of a fan of. I get what he was going for. I understood what it was trying to say, but it was a little bit too overindulgent on Tom Ford's part. I think he went a little bit too far, and I was like, at a point I was like, okay, I get it. We've seen enough now. We can stop this now. But yeah, there were times when I think I went a little bit too far, I think, and it got a little bit too carried away. But on the most part, I actually really enjoyed Nocturnal Animals. Yeah, I thought it was really quite good, actually. And next up, this is a film that's actually only just been released today, technically, but we got it here in the UK yesterday. I saw it last night, and that was Arrival. And if any of you know anything about me, you'll know that I'm a massive fan of science fiction cinema. I've been really looking forward to seeing this film. It's been one of my most anticipated films of the year since I first heard of it, and then the trailer got me really excited. And I purposely stayed away from all reviews on this film. I know it was supposed to have been good. I know that pretty much everyone who had seen it thought it was great, but I didn't read any reviews or watch any reviews or look at any videos or anything. I wanted to go in clean, like not knowing that much from anyone about what happens in the film, and I absolutely loved this film. Probably not that much of a surprise because I'm a big fan of science fiction, but I was worried it wouldn't live up to my expectations. I was worried it wouldn't be that great of a film. I was slightly sceptical. Am I going to enjoy it as much as I want to? Is it going to be what I want it to be? Is it going to be as great as I think it will be? And it was. It was just as good, if not better than I thought it was going to be. And I had really high expectations. And it was exactly what I wanted it to be. For me, I can't praise this film enough. I don't want to go over the top here or fanboy out, but I don't think I am overblowing it when I say that. For me, anyway, I think this is not only the best science fiction film I've seen since Snowpiercer, but I also think, I would say, I know it's probably too early to say, but it felt like this was a modern sci-fi classic, like the first sci-fi classic since Blade Runner for me, if we're not counting Terminator as full-blown sci-fi. But yeah, there wasn't one thing I didn't like about this film. I don't want to go too in depth here because I've really got enough time, and I also want to do a whole kind of separate, fully dedicated review for the film. But what I will say is that what I loved so much about this film is that it was harkening back to kind of the classic sci-fis of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, 2001: A Space Odyssey, but whilst at the same time being its own thing. And I think the simplest way I can put it is Arrival succeeded where Interstellar failed. And I loved Interstellar. I loved Interstellar for what it was, but you could tell it was very much influenced and inspired by the likes of 2001: A Space Odyssey. It was trying to be that kind of thing. Obviously, it went down a different route and it was its own thing as well, but you could tell Christopher Nolan was trying to make his version of 2001: A Space Odyssey, but it didn't really work. But this film succeeded so triumphantly in that respect. It really felt like, again, I don't think this is going too far, but it really felt like the modern day 2001: A Space Odyssey, like this century's 2001: A Space Odyssey. But at the same time, like I said, it was still very much its own thing. It wasn't so far out and detached and weird, but at the same time it wasn't ripping off anything from the past. It had struck that perfect balance by harkening back to the past, to the classic sci-fi, while still at the same time being very unique and clever and different in its own thing. And I just absolutely loved it. Just as far as like the imagery was concerned, the visuals, the music, it felt very much, there was a lot of echoes from like 2001: A Space Odyssey, which I loved. Another thing I really liked was that it was very kind of underplayed. It was very kind of understated. It wasn't this big bombastic, obviously this isn't an action movie. If you go in expecting Independence Day, you're going to be disappointed because this isn't an action movie. This is a science fiction film, and I love serious science fiction films, and I also love science fiction films when they're underplayed. One of my favourite films of last year was Ex Machina, and that was another one that was very quite understated, and that's what I loved about Arrival. It felt very much more realistic than any other sci-fi film, because yes, concept-wise, this is something we've seen so many times before. Alien invasion, first contact with aliens, we've seen it so many times before. You try to explain the concept to someone, the premise, and it just sounds really boring, like we've seen it 100 times before, and we have. But the way in which Arrival executed it and put it across, and also story-wise as well, it was really quite clever and unique and different. I just absolutely loved it. I could go on and on about this in more depth and detail, but like I said, I'm going to wait and do a review for the film, a fully dedicated, in-depth review of the film. I'm not sure when I'm going to get a chance to do that, but I will at some point go more in depth and give you more of what I really liked about Arrival. But for now, that is what I thought about Arrival. I can't recommend this film enough. For me, it's, with the exception of La La Land, it's the best film of the year. I still think La La Land is my number one because I just adored that film. But Arrival is definitely a close second, so I definitely recommend going out and checking out Arrival as soon as you can, because for me it was just absolutely amazing. I loved it. I'm going to have to go quick fire on these movie news topics now because I spent quite a long time on films I've watched this week. But first up, we've got comic book movie news. And the first piece of comic book movie news is that Fox is planning to reboot the X-Men franchise, but with McAvoy, Fassbender and Lawrence still optimistically in mind. And I was a little bit like, hang on a minute, what is going on here? Because I'm not against a reboot of the X-Men franchise, because although I really like the X-Men series, there's some that are there's obviously a couple of stinkers in there, some that aren't that great, but for the most part I really like this series and I think it's really good for the most part. Obviously we've got some really great films in there, like some of the Bryan Singer's earlier X-Men films, First Class, Days of Future Past, and I even liked Apocalypse. A lot of people really didn't like Apocalypse, but I actually thought Apocalypse was pretty good. You know, it wasn't great, it wasn't one of the best of the series or anything, it wasn't one of the best X-Men movies, but I actually liked X-Men Apocalypse. But that being said, I'm not against a reboot because I feel like it's so overly kind of convoluted and so many continuity errors at this point. It would just make sense for them to just wipe this slate clean and start over, especially after Logan, which I think would be a perfect end. John Campea brought this up on Cloud and Movie Talk, but I so wholeheartedly agree. How he said that, you know, it began with Logan and Charles back in the first X-Men movie. It would just be so great and so poetic for it to end with Logan and Charles in next year's Logan, and I really like that idea. And also, Deadpool was kind of already semi-rebooted it. We've got a new Colossus in there, a new X-Men in a sense, so Deadpool could essentially be the first in this new X-Men universe. So I really think they should probably do this. But then you read into it and it's like, oh, they're going to reboot it, but then McAvoy, Fassbender and Lawrence are still optimistically in mind. Well, hang on a minute, because if you're going to keep them, that's not a reboot. You know, a reboot means you just recast, essentially. It's completely different and completely new actors. If you're going to keep the same actors, well, it's not really a reboot then, is it? It's kind of a soft reboot, and that's kind of what X-Men First Class was. So I don't really get what they're going for here. If they're going to do a full reboot of the franchise, which I think would be the smartest decision at this point, because it's, you know, like I said, it's so overly convoluted and so much going on. They should just wipe the slate clean and start over after Hugh Jackman hangs up his claws as Logan. I think that'd be a perfect opportunity for them to go forward with X-Force and New Mutants, and then a new mainstream X-Men movie, like we call it X-Men Rebirth, X-Men Genesis, something like that perhaps. But then if they're going to keep the same actors, I would love to see them come back, sure. I love them in those roles, but if you're going to reboot it, you know, it doesn't make sense bringing the same actors back. So, I don't know, I'm kind of half and half on this. If they're going to reboot it, I think they should reboot it. Recast, do something completely different, wipe the slate clean, go forward with a new X-Men franchise. But if they're going to keep the same actors, well, I'm not necessarily against that, but then it's not really a reboot, is it? So I'm not too sure here. We'll have to wait and see what more news comes out on this. But yeah, the next piece of comic book movie news is that Game of Thrones star Ciaran Hinds is to play Steppenwolf in Justice League. And I really like this news. Obviously, Steppenwolf is going to be the villain in Justice League, the primary antagonist, I believe, because I think that they're going to hold off Darkseid, the big bad behind the scenes. I think they're going to hold him off for the sequel. Maybe he'll make an appearance, I don't know, but I feel like it makes sense to hold him off for the second film, because they've already got so much going on with Justice League, bringing all these heroes together, doing a big epic team-up film. I think it makes sense for going for more of a low-key villain, and yeah, saving Darkseid and Apocalypse, New Genesis, the New Gods, all that crazy stuff. They kind of save that. They can still hint at that, reference that, maybe have a glimpse of that in Justice League, but I think they should save all that stuff to maybe the second one, and just keep with Steppenwolf for this first film, even though he's not that big of a villain. But yeah, the fact that Ciaran Hinds is playing Steppenwolf, I really like this, because I mean, obviously he's a really good actor. If I look at some of the stuff he's done here, to make sure I'm talking about the right guy, yeah, he's had a lot of parts in a lot of small parts in a lot of big movies as well. Obviously, he's a great actor. He's been in some not that great films, like I said, in smaller roles, like he was in John Carter briefly. He was also in the Woman in Black remake. Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows it says here as well. So he's had a lot of small parts in big movies. So I think he's the perfect guy, because not only is he a great actor and a great talent to get involved to play this big villain, I presume it's going to be motion capture, but he's also been in a lot of big movies as well, albeit in small parts. But he obviously had experience working in big blockbuster movies. So I think he's actually, I wouldn't have thought of him as as to be cast as the villain, but I actually really like this choice and I think it's a really good idea, so I'm actually all for this. And next up we have Tom Holland has signed on for 6 appearances as Spider-Man in the MCU, and also Michael Keaton has been confirmed as Vulture. For me, Michael Keaton confirmed as Vulture isn't that big news. I think it was pretty obvious, and the way Kevin Feige revealed it, it was like he presumed everyone knew that already. So it's like, yeah, we got Michael Keaton as Vulture, like as if that wasn't a big a deal. And I don't think it was. It was kind of, I think it was pretty obvious he was going to be Vulture. I mean, he could have been something else, but I like the idea of Michael Keaton being the villain in the new Spider-Man movie as Vulture. I think that's a really cool idea. It's a little funny, a little ironic, considering he did Birdman, and Birdman kind of looks a little similar to Vulture, and that was kind of ripping on comic book movies essentially, and then he would go from that to being in comic book movies again. He obviously doesn't have anything against comic book movies, even though Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu doesn't like them, obviously. Michael Keaton has no problem because suddenly he's back in comic movies again, but it's cool to see him now as a villain. I can't wait to see that. Maybe as some kind of maybe crazy, unhinged, psychopathic villain as the Vulture. That'd be really cool to see, and obviously we haven't seen the Vulture yet on screen. Michael Keaton in that role I think would be really cool. And Tom Holland signing in for 6 Spider-Man appearances, no surprise there. The Marvel and Kevin Feige like to get actors locked down for a big number of appearances in movies. 6 Spider-Man appearances, whether that counts as Civil Wars or not, maybe it does, but seeing as he's only just signed now, I think maybe it doesn't count Civil War, because I presume those 6 appearances would be 3 Spider-Man films, and then Infinity War, the 4th Avengers film, and either the 5th Avengers film, or maybe that one was Civil War, or maybe appearance in another film, I don't know, but it's great that they've got him locked down for 6 appearances. So yeah, not much else to say there, but can't wait to see more Tom Holland as Spider-Man and Michael Keaton as Vulture. And next up we've got sci-fi, fantasy and horror movie news, the first being that The Dark Tower was delayed and pushed back till summer 2017 due to their requiring more time to work on visual effects. And I'm not that upset about this. I think I don't mind when films get pushed back, especially if they want to spend more time working on the film, because what I don't want is them to rush the film out and for it to look awful, especially The Dark Tower. I believe it's meant to be some big epic kind of fantasy film, so it's going to require a lot of visual effects, I would assume. So I feel like them spending more time working on it is a good idea rather than rushing it out, because I think it was due to come out early next year, but I think summer 2017 makes more sense as well. It being a big summer event movie, I think it will do better at the box office as well. And it's not as if we got to wait a year or anything, so I feel like them pushing it back, spending more time working on the visual effects, it coming out summer, that's the right move, I think. And next up is that Fantastic Beasts is apparently casting a young Dumbledore, and Depp is confirmed as Grindelwald. So Johnny Depp, as I suspected last week, I think it was, that he was going to be playing Grindelwald. It's been confirmed. He is playing Grindelwald, which I think is great. Not much else to say there. Obviously, I already talked about that last week. But yeah, the fact that they're casting young Dumbledore now, I'm not quite sure what to make of this, because I thought it was confirmed Dumbledore was making a cameo appearance in Fantastic Beasts. So they're either kind of skirting around it here, saying, oh yeah, we're still casting him, when maybe they already have cast an actor and they don't want to reveal it yet, so it's more of a surprise when we see him in Fantastic Beasts. Or maybe he's not going to be in Fantastic Beasts and they're saving him just for the sequel. I'm inclined to believe that he probably will have a cameo in Fantastic Beasts. I'm thinking they're kind of keeping it kind of under wraps a bit, so we don't really know who's playing him until we see the film. That'd be kind of cool. Or maybe they haven't actually cast him yet and he's not going to be in Fantastic Beasts, and maybe they're just saving him for the sequel. I don't know. Like I said, I think he may appear in the first Fantastic Beasts in cameo form, but I wouldn't be surprised if they just hold him off and keep him for the sequel. I don't know, maybe they've cast him, maybe they haven't, who knows, we'll have to wait and see there. Next up is that there's an American Werewolf in London remake is in the works with Max Landis, and I'm kind of torn on this. I haven't actually seen American Werewolf in London. I'm not the biggest fan of horror, but I've heard, it's supposed to be a classic. Lots of people love it, it's really beloved, it's supposed to be one of the best werewolf movies. Apparently, I think it's renowned for being one of the best looking werewolf transformations in horror movies, I believe. And obviously it's, loved by a lot of people, a great horror movie, a classic. I'm not quite sure why they're doing a remake. Why does, we have to remake every classic nowadays? I don't know. What is interesting about this is that Max Landis is going to be writing and directing it. I'm not the biggest fan of Max Landis. I don't love everything he's done. I do think he is talented, and I do think, he wrote Chronicle, and I love Chronicle. What worries me here, though, is that he's going to be directing it, and he hasn't directed a film yet. So the fact that a remake of American Werewolf in London is going to be his directorial debut. However, he is the son of the director of the original, John Landis. Maybe they're going to be working together, maybe kind of passing the baton kind of thing. It does worry me that he's going to be doing this as his first film as a director. I'm not sure how that's going to work out. I've kind of got hope that it could be something good, because what I don't think this will be is just a really lazy, uninspired remake. We've got someone like Max Landis attached to it, and he's all about new, cool, crazy, different ideas and pushing the boundaries and doing something that you won't expect. So I don't think he's going to do a rubbish film. I'm not sure how it's going to turn out quality-wise, and obviously the fact that this is his first film as a director, hopefully he'll get some help from his dad, hopefully he'll have a great team surrounding him, and hopefully it will turn out good. Like I said, I haven't seen the original, but I'm kind of cautiously optimistic about this. Hopefully it won't turn out horrendous, hopefully it will turn out good, but we'll have to wait and see on that. Next up is that Pacific Rim 2 begins filming, obviously with John Boyega there, and the title has been confirmed as Pacific Rim Maelstrom. I'm kind of torn what to think about this. It's not a horrendous title, but Pacific Rim Maelstrom, is that the best title? I don't know. Obviously, Maelstrom meaning a frenzy, a vortex, I believe. Okay, makes sense, I suppose, but is the general audience going to understand what they're going for with that? Maybe when we know more about the film, that title will make perfect sense. But I don't know. It just seems a bit of an odd choice for a subtitle. Who knows? I don't know. And yeah, John Boyega's there as the son of Idris Elba's character. Hopefully it'll turn out better than the first one. I didn't hate the first one. I liked the first Pacific Rim. It wasn't as great as I thought it was going to be. But that being said, I don't think it was bad. I just thought it was alright. I liked it. It was okay. I bought it on Blu-ray, but I haven't watched it. I watched it once, I think, and I haven't watched it since it came out. But I think the sequel, I have a feeling the sequel will be better, and they'll build on what they set up and established in the first one and deliver a better sequel. I think this is a series where there's potential for the second film to be a lot better than the first. I hope anyway. Next up, we've got some few pieces of biopic movie news here, and first up is that Mr. Robot's Rami Malek is to play Freddie Mercury in the Queen biopic Bohemian Rhapsody, and I think this is a good choice. I was really down for Sacha Baron Cohen playing Freddie Mercury, because I remember when it was revealed that he was going to be playing Freddie Mercury. Obviously it didn't happen in the end, it kind of fell through, but it would have been so cool to see Sacha Baron Cohen in more of a serious biopic role playing a guy like Freddie Mercury, and he looked quite like him as well, so that would have been pretty cool. But this guy, I'm not overly familiar with him as an actor or his work. I haven't actually seen Mr. Robot. I've heard it's supposed to be pretty good. However, in the pictures I've seen, he does look like Freddie Mercury, and I think he does have the acting chops, from what I've heard, to play this role and do a good job. So I'm looking forward to that and excited to see how that turns out. And next up, the first image of Gary Oldman has been released as Winston Churchill in Darkest Hour, and this looks great. I'm a massive fan of Gary Oldman. For me, he's just absolutely tremendous actor. Literally every single film I've seen him in, he is amazing, regardless of the quality of the film. Even if he's in a bad film, you can bet Gary Oldman's going to deliver a terrific performance. And every time you see him play a character, he becomes another person. He becomes that character. You no longer see Gary Oldman. He transforms himself into whoever the character he's playing. And this picture here, he looks almost unrecognisable. He looks like Winston Churchill. I think they've put some kind of makeup and prosthetics on him, but you can still tell that's Gary Oldman there. But I really think this will be great. Obviously, we don't know anything about the film yet, no trailer or anything, I don't think. But in terms of this image, it looks so great. I cannot wait to see this. Gary Oldman as Winston Churchill. I think this is a Winston Churchill biopic, I would presume. So yeah, I can't wait to hear more about this and see a trailer perhaps. And as far as movie news in general is concerned, We've got Quentin Tarantino announced his retirement after his next 2 films. And obviously he's been talking about this for a while. He's only going to be doing 10 films. After 10 films he's done. He's like a boxer in his prime. As soon as he's done, he's not going to keep going and go downhill. He's going to be finished and done. He's 10 great films there. He's not going to do any more. That's it. No bad films, no going downhill. That's it. He's 10 great films and then he's done. He's out. I don't think it's going to happen. I feel like he probably will do more films. Whether he'll take a break, go into something else, I don't know. He'll probably take a break, spend a bit of time doing something else and then come back to films. I don't think he's just going to do 10 and that's it. You never know, he might be just so like stick to his words, like no, I'm definitely not doing any more than 10. But I can't see that happening. I'm sure he's going to do more than 10 films, even though he's done 8 now, he's got 2 left, but I can't see him not doing more films beyond 10. You know, whether he takes a break or not, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure he'll end up getting round to eventually doing more films beyond 10. You know, I can't see him retiring anytime soon. Next up, Mission Impossible 6 gets 2018 release date. Really happy with this. Big fan of the Mission Impossible franchise. It was actually revealed not long after the 5th one came out that we're going to go straight into it. It was going to come out 2 years later, 2017. I was like, whoa, hold on. I get that Tom Cruise isn't getting younger anytime soon, but please don't rush into it, because sometimes with sequels, when it's only a 2-year gap, they rush into it and it doesn't turn out that great. So I'm glad that it's a 3-year gap. It's not coming out until 2018 now. I think that's perfect. Obviously, Rogue Nation came out in 2015. 3 years later, we're going to get the next one. I think that's good. I wouldn't have liked them to rush into it and immediately started production on the 6th one and immediately got the next one, because I think it would have been rush and it wouldn't have been that good. I like the fact that they're taking their time on it. It's been pushed back to 2018. I like that. So yeah, cannot wait for that as well. And finally, we've got that Willy Wonka remake is to ignore the books. And you know, why they're doing another Willy Wonka remake, I don't know. I think I did say a week or 2 back that I wasn't necessarily against a remake. I think I said that, I'm not sure. But as far as this news goes, like, I don't want them to move ahead with this. If they're going to ignore the books, like what? What? That doesn't make any sense. If you're going to make a Willy Wonka movie, if anything, make it closer to the source material and give the fans what they want. As much as I love the 70s version, it's not that similar to the books. I mean, it kind of is in a way, but it does more of its own thing. At the same time, I don't want to have a Willy Wonka remake that's completely detached from the source material, that is doing completely its own thing, that is so far removed. Like, to ignore the books, that makes no sense. Why would they do that? So I'm not for this at all. If they're going to go in that direction, I really hope they don't. I don't want this remake to really happen, really. It doesn't need to happen. We don't need another Willy Wonka movie. They don't need to remake this, especially seeing as Gene Wilder's not long past. And for them to say they're going to ignore the books, that really concerns me. I don't think they should go down that direction, but who knows. And now we're getting on to new movie trailers. The first trailer for Trainspotting 2, and I'm actually looking forward to this. A lot of people have been going, oh, it's just fan service. Yeah, it kind of is. Everyone loves the first one. The fans really want a second one. And I was torn on what to think about this, but I actually like the trailer. I think Danny Boyle's come back, got all the cast back there, and it looks cool. It looks like it's still going to be in the same kind of spirit as the first movie, but whilst at the same time going in a slightly different direction. These characters are older now. It's been 20 years. We see what they've done over the years, whether the direction their lives are going in now and what's happened, dealing with like things in the modern world now, like social media. And I actually really like the look of this trailer. I don't know how great the film is going to turn out, whether a sequel was necessary or not, but I like the trailer. I'm actually looking forward to this. And finally, we got the first trailer released for Luc Besson's sci-fi epic Valerian and the City of 1,000 Planets. And obviously I'm a big fan of sci-fi. I'm not the biggest Luc Besson fan. I don't really get the Fifth Element. I don't hate the Fifth Element, but for me, the Fifth Element, it was just trying to be like a kind of Blade Runner, and it didn't really work. It was trying to like, for me, it was trying to like imitate like the likes of Blade Runner, Dune, and it just didn't really work for me. However, this does look pretty cool. Obviously, Luc Besson did Lucy. I didn't hate Lucy, but that wasn't that great really either. I like how kind of when he does sci-fi, it's big and crazy and imaginative and over the top. I just hope it's a solid film and a good film, and not like a Jupiter Ascending. If you haven't seen Jupiter Ascending, don't, because oh my god, that was just a horrible mess. Like, that's the kind of film that gives science fiction a bad name. And that was the Wachowskis, and I love the Wachowskis, but they really dropped the ball with that film. I don't know what the hell happened there. That was just and it did dangerously look quite close to Jupiter Ascending, but at the same time it did look like a Fifth Element. And I think if Luc Besson brings what he brought to the Fifth Element, even though I wasn't the biggest fan, I think this will be good, as long as it's not doesn't go into Jupiter Ascending territory and it's more of Fifth Element and more along those kind of lines. I think it will be pretty cool. As far as the visuals are concerned, it looks incredible. Some of the, just the imagery in this trailer, the action, it just looks spectacular. I just hope it's a great film from the story and the script. I just hope it's a good film. I'm looking forward to this. Like I said, I'm a big fan of sci-fi. I'm more of a fan of the kind of serious, more grounded sci-fi, but I do like big, epic, crazy sci-fi as well. I just hope it's a good film. And finally, going to opening this week, obviously I've already touched on Arrival at the beginning of the episode because I've already seen it, but it's actually released today, so it's out now. People can go and see it. And then also American Pastoral, which is Ewan McGregor's directorial debut, I believe. I haven't heard that much about this film. I was surprised it was opening this week, actually. I may check it out, I may not. I'm not sure. If I get the chance, I might go and check it out. It looks pretty good, and it's, like I said, Ewan McGregor's first movie as a director, so I'd want to support that. But really, the standout film for opening this week was Arrival. Everyone has to go and see Arrival. I hope everyone loves it as much as I did. That's where I'm going to end this week's episode of the Friday Film Show. Those are my thoughts and opinions on the movie news stories that most interested me from the past week. But what do you guys think? I'd love to know your guys' thoughts and opinions and everything in the comment section down below. And as always, if you like this, then make sure to click subscribe to see more. But for now, I've been David O'Sullivan. I'll see you next time.